Good morning. Welcome to our class this morning. Our lesson today is Jesus wants us to finish strong. Jesus wants us to finish strong. And you remember from, we have used the word strong the last 10 or so years, ever since that incident at the Boston Marathon where someone set some bombs off and stuff. So we have used the word strong in our everybody, everything today that you want people to be strong. And so when there is a catastrophe, we now are attaching strong to the end of it. And so Jesus wants us to finish strong in our walk with the Lord. So our main lesson piece is going to be in Matthew chapter 25. And so if you want to turn to Matthew 25, that's where we will be for the most part. What does the Bible say about the future? Well, the Lord holds the future in His hand. And we have looked at how society is obsessed with the future. Even this week, a couple national politicians and actors and actresses have fallen into, their reliance upon palm readers and horoscopes and the like. So don't get caught up in trying to figure out the future. The Lord holds the future. Again, like we said last week, if those things actually were, I'll say real, they would all be multimillionaires. They would. If you could predict the future, why not predict the lottery numbers and just, that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that some of the things with, I'll say, psychics or with mediums, that witchcraft, those things are nothing to be played around with. Okay? Now, the devil can't predict the future. Your dead relatives can't predict the future. Okay? And anything that you might think that a dead relative might say to you, just take a step back from that, knowing that your relative loved you, right? I know that my grandfather loved me. No one can change my mind on that, okay? But nothing that he could say would change what I'm doing today. If I had a vision or a dream, and it was my grandfather, and he was telling me, Kenny, buy a Ford pickup. Sorry, Gramp. I'm too far into Chevy and GMC. Okay? And, I know he loves me, but, today, just deal with today. And the information that you have been given today, the Bible, the best choice that you can make with that, and trust yourself. Many people today are so unsure of themselves. And so the Bible wants us to be sure of ourselves. Know where you're going, know where you've you've come from. So don't get caught up in trying to figure out the future. We have plenty of information on how we should live today. The Bible is very clear on what we should do and how we should do it. Question number 2. What would your dream house look like if money were no object? What would your dream house look like? Anybody? Alice? There you go. Okay. Anybody else? Ariana? What would you like to have for a house someday? No, a dream. I'm not talking about realistic. I'm saying a dream. You don't know? No snow. We got out of the car night before last, or yesterday, on the way to Boston, and it was beautiful. It was 75 degrees, a light breeze, sunny day. I told Beth, I said, I could actually take this year round. Okay? No hotter, no cooler. Okay? My wife would like a house on the ocean, so she could look out in the morning, have her breakfast, and look out on the waves coming in. I wouldn't like that at all, because I'm the other side. I would be thinking about the storms and the winds crashing. I would be thinking, like that. And so we think about what we would have that we don't have now, and that's okay. It's okay to dream. John 14, Jesus has gone away to prepare a place for us. If you knew that a relative, if you knew that a relative was coming to have supper with you tonight, you would make certain preparations, okay? You may have to go to the grocery store. You may have to scurry home and clean your house up a little bit, okay? Maybe maybe they love chocolate cake, okay? So, you would want to do something that they enjoy, that they like. Now, when the Father is ready, He will send Jesus back for us. And you remember in Acts 1, the disciples wanted to know, are you going to set up your kingdom now? That's what they wanted to know. And Jesus said, it's not for us to know the time, the hour. Only God knows what that is. And when the time is right, the Lord will send Jesus back for us. So we still need to be watching and praying to be ready for the Lord's return. To watch and to pray. We pray for His return, and in that watching, when I was back home and younger, sometimes sometimes company would say they were coming, and from where we lived on half a hill, you could look towards town, and you could see this big long stretch of highway. And sometimes in the winter, my brother and I would go out and sit on the snowbank, and we would wonder if that's their car that is coming, okay? To watch and to pray, to be ready. We expect Him to return at any moment. However, we wisely take care of ourselves as if His return will be in 100 years. Okay? It's unwise. You get your paycheck, you get your retirement. It's unwise to say, oh, maybe the Lord will come back next week, so I'm going to spend all my money, on whatever. You know what I'm saying, Mom? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So God has given us a brain to think, to plan, to be wise, to plan wisely. Okay, last week we studied Jesus' soon return. The early church believed Jesus would return soon. For many years, the church continued to believe Jesus would come back soon. Many and most of the disciples believed that Jesus would come back soon, although Jesus did hint about in John chapter 22 when he was talking to Peter about feed my sheep, and he was talking about how that when John was getting older, people would take him where he didn't want to go, and that sort of thing. So for the longest time, people in the first century, they believed Jesus was going to come back during their lifetime. And then for a long time, the church seemed to forget about this promise. Jesus didn't come back. Jesus didn't come back. Now, in the writings of Paul, Paul writes to give them instruction because there were some people who were teaching that Jesus came back and they missed it. And Paul said, no one's going to miss it. And so for a long time, the church neglected this promise. And then at the beginning of the 1900s, there was a renewed emphasis on Jesus' return. And this is profitable for us so that we live a better life. When Israel became a nation in 1948, that hope was set on fire, was set ablaze. So in question number 5, during the interim period, we are trying to reach as many with the gospel as we can. And that's what we are doing today. Now, we all like to know when things are going to happen. I mean, when does Sunday school start? 9:30. When does church start? 10:30. Okay, you know that's when it's going to start. The other day, Beth and I were talking about getting gas, and so okay, what time do they open? Because I don't want to go sit and wait if they're not open. If we are invited to an event, we need critical information to attend. Okay? You know that expression, a day late and a dollar short? Well, that's for a sale. But if it's a hot date, if it is if my granddaughter is having her concert, I want to make sure it's the right day and the right time. Okay? So, we want to be prepared and we want to do our part. Sometimes we can just, change our clothes, put our shoes on, and we're off, and we're there. Other times it takes a little longer to get ready. Only God knows when Jesus will return. And even again today, we need to be careful because every once in a while a Christian author will write about when they think Jesus is coming back, okay? And we need to take it with a grain of salt. Actually, I do know when Jesus is coming back. I just told you, when God tells him to. That's a non-answer, right? Okay. That may give us some of the license to put off getting ready. Question 6, and we are now in Matthew chapter 25, the first 4 verses. Our lesson today is focusing on finishing strong. And so if you have your Bible open to Matthew chapter 25, the first 4 verses, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like. Now, this is a simile. It's a comparison. It's a parable. It's a story that Jesus is telling. When we talk about parables, not every single detail in the parable may have a spiritual meaning, but many of the things that we see in it can be helpful in our daily lives. And so we're going to look at that. It would be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Notice this is the Greek way of thinking. Now, in English way of thinking, we would put the most important element in this sentence, we would put that first. Taking their lamps, the bridegroom is coming. That's the most important thing. Taking their lamps is secondary. So here, when you read something, sometimes the most important thing is the last, and sometimes the first thing is the least important. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 of them were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. So, think about going on a train ride. Those going on the train ride, they need to get a ticket for the train. It's not like it used to be years ago. This is before my time. People would get on the train, and then while they're on the train, the conductor would come along and ticket please, ticket please. Now that to me sounded the back way to do it, because what are we going to do? No ticket? He can just throw you off right there. But if you're going to go on a train, if you're going to go on the Downeaster today, if you're going to go up to Brunswick, or if you're going to go down to Boston, okay, you have to have a ticket. When you get to go on those trains, ticket please, ticket please. A seat is reserved for them, and the train makes ready to depart. Okay? If the train's going to leave at 8 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, they don't start putting gas in the train to make sure it's going to get there. Right? We're going to sell sandwiches on the train. So at 5 minutes to 8, they start bringing sandwich. No, they get that way ready. Passengers make preparation for the trip. How long are they going to be gone? If you're just going to Brunswick, just get on the train. If you're going to Boston, well, how long are you going to be in Boston? You're going to be overnight? You're going to be for a couple days? You might need a change of clothes. You might need your toothbrush. Okay? What else do you need? If you're going down to Boston for the day, you might want to bring a change of clothes, just in case. Certainly, if you have children, you want to bring a change of clothes, because in an instant, they can suddenly be covered in grease. How did that happen? What do they need? So we're thinking about going someplace. What do we need? Question 7. Our lesson looks at the preparation for the wedding. Now, the couple exchanged promises This is a typical biblical wedding at this time. The couple would exchange promises. It was a legal contract. They were married except for the wedding day. They were committed to each other, and the only way they could break that was with a writ of divorcement. And so it was during that time period, the groom goes to prepare a place for the bride. Most of the time, unless they were very, very wealthy, most of the time that place would be an additional room or an additional tent to their parents' home. And they would go and they would make everything ready. And most of the time, it was about a year. We today are stuck on calendars, aren't we? I was talking to someone not very long time ago. This was a teenager, and I said, "How old are you?" "Oh, I'm almost 15. I said, "Oh, when's your birthday?" "My birthday was in May." And I'm almost 15 now. It was June. Their birthday was like 2 weeks before this. And they just turned 14. But when you ask them how old they are now, I'm almost 15. Okay? We get so locked in to that. But think of it more like when we tell a child we're going to do something in a minute. We don't mean literally in 1 minute. We don't mean 60 seconds. I'm going to do it as soon as I can. Okay? That period of time was about a year. In our lesson, there were 10 bridesmaids invited to this wedding. Now, before we talk about the tragic end, let's look at some things that they all had in common. All of the bridesmaids, are you ready? All of the bridesmaids had received an invitation to the wedding. There wasn't a wedding crasher. They all had an invitation. They were all invited. All of the bridesmaids had accepted the invitation. Just because somebody has been invited, it doesn't mean that they're going, right? You ever get any mail? It's an advertisement. You're invited to, you get an email. Mr. Wilcox, we have a 2024 RAV4 that just came onto our lot, and we think you might be interested in it. You're invited to come for a test drive, okay? Doesn't mean I accept the invitation. So all of them accepted the invitations. All of them had their bridesmaids' attire ready. Jesus told another parable about how someone was getting married and that there was someone that was in the banquet that didn't have their wedding garments on. Now, here, they have their wedding, their dress for the wedding. All of them prepared for the wait by bringing their lamps with them. That was the first sentence that we read. They brought their lamps because they'd been invited. All of them prepared by bringing them. All of the bridesmaids felt drowsy, and all of the bridesmaids drifted off to sleep. Okay? Are you seeing the similarities here? Now, question number 9. At the midnight hour, and here we're still with some similarities of what happened. At the midnight hour, the cry came, "Here's the bridegroom. Come out to meet him. Get ready. Prepare to meet the bridegroom." Now, all of the bridesmaids woke up. You didn't have 5 that stayed sleeping. No, they all woke up. All of them trimmed their lamps. Now, 5 of them had brought extra oil just in case. 5 of them had not brought extra oil. The 5 foolish asked the 5 wise for oil. "Our lamps are going out. Help." The 5 wise said, "No, there may not be enough for all of us. Go buy oil from those that sell." So in this parable, the 5 foolish left the appointed place to go buy oil. And guess what happened? In such an hour as you think not, it's going to happen. At that moment that they left, that was the time that the bridegroom returned. When the 5 foolish returned, they were locked out. When they were locked out, the reply was, "Sorry, I don't know you." And so in our lesson this morning, the lesson is here to be prepared. And that preparation, it involved to everything that they had done, but don't leave out something critical. Okay? They didn't take any extra oil. And so the first lesson is be prepared. The second lesson is don't leave the appointed place. Okay? They left. They should not have left. Now, our last few questions here this morning. Life can get busy. Okay? In the 5 wise and the 5 foolish, Jesus is making the point toward us is things get busy. I mean, think about this morning. Did you forget anything today on the way to church? Did you forget anything? You know, sometimes we forget stuff, okay? And now sometimes that stuff is really important, okay? One week, Beth had to go back to our house and get my briefcase because it had all my important stuff. Now, sometimes it might be not so important. I'll get it next time. But life can get busy. We must continue to watch and pray in the midst of living. Okay? Every one of us have the same 24 hours a day to live. And sometimes people will make the excuse, "Oh, I didn't have time." And sometimes that's a lame excuse, because we all have the same amount of time. But what was the priority? Well, that puzzle that I was working on, I really had to finish that puzzle. I really had to finish watching that movie. Okay? That book was so interesting. I had to finish it. Sometimes the business of life causes the awareness of his return to fade. And so we let things slide sometimes. So living in relationship with Jesus and others who expect his soon return will help us to stay ready. So as we are expecting it. And this last couple weeks, we have had an emphasis on Jesus' return. And so this helps us to stay ready. That's what teaching and that's what preaching does for us. Remember when you were in school and the teacher brought out something and you go, oh, I know that. I know that. What is the teacher doing? Reviewing. Okay? They're going to teach you, it's line upon line. And so they're going to teach you a new step, but make sure we got this one. Okay? So we're building on that. So now you answer this. Don't. Are you someone who prepares or put it off? Don't point fingers at anybody else either. Okay? And so the Lord wants us to be prepared. Question number 12. Finishing strong requires devotion. So look at verses 5 to 9. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry came out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both of us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." So finishing strong requires devotion. To don't leave the appointed place. Only a foolish person would start a marathon with no preparation. Right? Okay? A marathon is 26 and a half miles. 26 and a half miles. That's a long ways. Okay? I'd have a hard time running to my car from here. Okay? If I was going to... What's the race in the Clam Festival? How far do you run there? 5 miles or 5K? Yeah, you do. I don't... Hey, Robert, I want to run the Clam Festival. I'm going to run the 5 miles today. You want to run with me? I wouldn't make it out of the parking lot. You got to work your way out. Yeah. If I had 30 years, I wouldn't have enough time. Get ready for that. We cannot expect to finish if we put no thought into what we are doing. So we do need to think. Daily habits will reinforce our faith. And so, reading our Bible, praying, doing things that are helpful to our walk with the Lord, those will help us. And thinking about the Lord, talking about the Lord, and being ready requires an endurance. Okay, we have to endure. Jesus did ask the question, when I come back, will I find faith on the earth? Okay, so people tend to fall asleep. Okay, our last question this morning. Many people thought Noah was crazy for building an ark. So in verse 10, but while they were on their way to buy oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet. The door was shut. Later also others came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the hour or the day or the hour." And so people thought Noah was crazy for building an ark. It's going to rain. They had never seen rain before. It had never rained before. During that period of time, there was a mist that came up from the ground to water the earth. At that time, the way that it appears is that the land mass of the earth was all together, okay? and that water was around. Because when you read the story of creation, the Lord put all the water in one place, and the land was in one place. But when the flood happened, the heavens opened, and a deluge of water, and it says that the earth below, the foundations of the earth moved, and water came up, and so you have the continents shifting, and I mean, we know that today this is true. If you go to a map, and you can go online today, and people have done it for you, and you can take all of the continents and all, Australia and all those places, and you can put them back together, and you can see where they fit with each other. But as a result of the flood, it broke apart, and they never heard of rain. They had never seen massive flooding before. There's going to be a flood, cover the earth. And to the people there, they thought Noah was crazy. They refused the connection between their dark thoughts and God judging the world. And right up to the end of when Noah went into the ark, the Bible says that they were partying right up until the very last moment. We know today that how many times do you talk to people that they should have been preparing for something, but they were having a great time? If you were a parent, you know that about your kids, right? Go get ready for something. Except for me. When I was a kid, I always did everything I was supposed to do. Yeah, right. If you believe that, okay. One day, when they least expect it, God closed the door. And 1 week later, it began to rain. When we talk today about the Lord's, if we talk to people today about the Lord's return, they're going to think you're crazy. But church, He's coming back. We need to be ready. Amen. Well, that's our lesson for this morning. I'll give Robert next week's lesson, and he will pass that out.